13. The next handful of days are spent touring the compound, in the few hours when I'm allowed out of the storage room, a compromise Ray made with Ezra, until we convince him that I'm not a threat. That's what she claims anyway, but I have a feeling the order to keep me locked up came from someone above them in the Phoenix hierarchy, someone I have yet to meet. The structure is an underground facility from the pre-state days, but that's as much as anyone is willing to tell me, other than to say that we're safe from the state here. As if there could possibly be such a place. Ray and Jenner are hospitable, and their friendly manner is almost enough to make me believe I'm not their prisoner, until we pass one of the other residents, and that person's wariness when they look at me triggers the reminder of where I am and why everyone views me as a threat. That single look forces me to remember that I'm not truly welcome here. It also doesn't escape my notice. There are things they make it a point not to show me, specifically, the exits. Regardless of the kindness they're bestowing upon me, regardless of their words of acceptance, it's evident they don't trust me enough to risk letting me leave. I don't blame them. For all they know, I could be leading Dr. Richter right to them. Make yourself at home. I scowl at Ray, unable to hold back a grimace. Really? She insists, pursing her lips and giving me a look that tells me I shouldn't doubt her. I can't help it. Surely making myself at home will only cause more problems for me in the long run. She and Jenner might like me enough to want me to stay, but I have a feeling that sentiment isn't shared by the others here, especially Ezra. Even now, nearly a week after waking up in this place, I struggle to see how he fits into my life. Or how we'll get to where we are in my vision. Maybe that's for the best, considering the terrible future awaiting us. That destruction should be avoided at all costs. And maybe the way to do that is to avoid him. Still, at this rate, I'll never understand who he is or the connection he holds to my condition. And the not knowing is what's driving me crazy. The first step to acceptance is exposure, Ray says, her musical trill snapping me back to attention. The people here need to see you if they're expected to trust you, and that'll never happen if you're locked away all the time. I cock a dubious eyebrow at her. Last I checked, being locked up wasn't exactly my choice. Despite that thought, I say nothing, even though there's an obvious flaw in her logic. In the heart, people often go their entire lives without trusting anyone, even those closest to them. So how can she expect a group of strangers to trust me after such a short time together and only the odd interaction in passing? I haven't earned their trust, and frankly, I don't need it. I'm only here to discern the link between Ezra and my vision. I came here for answers, nothing else. Ray pauses beside the doorway leading into one of the 2 galley kitchens and turns toward me, taking hold of my hands. Anyway, this is where I leave you. I have some things I need to see to, and I think Jenner can take it from here. I hope you don't find this too forward, but I've arranged for you to have a shower. I would have taken you sooner, but everything we let you do has to be approved. And unfortunately, there was some kickback. Kickback? I ask, furrowing my brow. She rolls her lower lip between perfect white teeth. The showers are communal, and some of our residents here are vulnerable. They weren't comfortable with the idea of you, a stranger, being in there with them unsupervised. But at this time of day, the facility should be empty. Everyone is off doing their chores. Problem solved. Her eyes flit to Jenner, who looks down at me and winks. I'll make sure no one bothers you. Ray says her goodbyes, then disappears into the sweltering heat of the kitchen. Once we're alone, Jenner returns to our leisurely stroll, and I follow him through the endless corridors, trailing his every step like a shadow. We walk without speaking for so long I lose track of the time, but I don't mind the silence. His company is soothing and eases my growing distress about being underground, surrounded by people who think I'm only here to harm them. It's strange when I put my feelings toward Jenner in perspective to the other relationships in my life. Thinking about it, I wasn't even this comfortable around my own mother. "How many people live here?" I ask after a while. 26. But with you, we have 27, he answers. My feet falter and I stumble to a standstill. 26 people. The fearsome terrorist organization Phoenix only has 26 people? Is that it? The question escapes me in a strangled whisper. Jenner's lips crack into a lopsided smile. For just one branch in a much larger tree, Phoenix has hundreds of sects in the heart alone, some of which greatly outnumber ours. Oh, a sigh of relief crawls up my throat, but I catch myself mid-breath. I barely know these people, so why should I care if they have the support and numbers needed to stand up to the state? That's their problem. It has nothing to do with me. Except, with every day that passes, I realize a bit more how untrue that is. I'm no insurgent. I didn't come here to join Phoenix as some act of rebellion against the society I was raised in. I came here because I was scared, and I didn't know what else to do. I'm nothing but a homeless runaway who found kindness where I didn't expect it. And now, I'm terrified I might lose it. What else do I have without this? Where else could I go? "Here we are," Jenner announces, stopping beside an open door leading through to a narrow hallway. There's a bathroom not far from the storage room, which Ray accompanies me to a few times a day, but that facility doesn't have a shower. As I stare through the doorway, it occurs to me just how long it's been since I last bothered to bathe. Funny how removing the threat of death can put these sort of things into perspective. "Ray told me earlier she set aside some clothes for you in the washroom, which is at the end of the hall through this door. I'll wait for you out here while you clean up. I know it's been a while, so take your time." His nonchalant remark about my lack of cleanliness would be insulting if it wasn't so painfully true. Now that I'm free of the DSD, the awareness of the stench exuding from my skin makes me shudder. All I want in this moment is to wash it away, along with everything bad that's happened to me over these last few months. My cheeks burn as I dash through the doorway, and I don't dare slow my pace until my feet carry me into the washroom, beyond the reach of Jenner's piercing gaze. Although his presence brings me much-needed comfort, it's also overwhelming at times. The way he looks at me, I don't think I'll ever get used to it. My breaths are ragged as I step into the empty room, and although I'm thankful for the solitude, I feel like a trespasser, like I shouldn't be here. I whip around at the slightest noise, whether it be the low thunk of pipes or the slow dripping of water, afraid of who might be waiting around every corner or in the shadows. This isn't like the DSD, I remind myself, letting out a breath. These are good people. They aren't like Dr. Richter. I inhale through my nose, and once my pulse is steady again, I begin to undress. It's like peeling off a second layer of skin, the fabric stiff with sweat and stinking of odors built up over several months that have been collecting on my skin and could turn even the strongest stomach. It's remarkable Ray and Jenner could stand being near me. Come to think of it, the thick, musty stench in the Vega was probably the only thing masking my odor from Ezra. Wincing at the smell, I kick the clothes off, leaving them in a heap on the white cement floor, before stepping into the nearest shower cubicle and turning the valve until the water is scalding. The heat feels good against my aching skin, and I sense a weight lift off my shoulders the longer I stand under the spray, as if the water is burning away my trauma. As steam swarms my body, I glance down at my bandaged wrist for the first time since removing the chip. The thought of looking before frightened me, but now I want to see what lies under the dressing. I need to see what I've done to myself. what price I paid to escape Dr. Richter. My teeth bite along my lip as my fingers carefully unravel the linen covering and remove the gauze. Apart from some swelling and the uneven line of stitches holding my sliced skin together, the wound doesn't look too bad. It doesn't appear to be infected anymore, at least, thanks to Ray. I count myself lucky, considering how differently things would have turned out if Ezra hadn't bothered to help me, and Ray hadn't worked tirelessly to get me through those first few days when they weren't even sure I'd survive. From the moment I stepped inside the Vega, Ezra held my life in his hands, even if he didn't know it. As far as he was concerned, I was the enemy. He could have let me die. He could have let me bleed out to ensure his own survival and safety. But he didn't. He chose to save me. That knowledge, along with several other small discoveries I've made since I woke up in this place, reiterate that Phoenix isn't at all what I expected, based on what I was told growing up. But I'm also still not sure if I should trust them, regardless of what they've done for me so far. As I keep telling myself, trust is dangerous. Trust gets you killed. Plus, I don't exactly feel safe here, and I definitely don't belong with these people, despite what Jenner and Ray keep saying. And yet, I know I have to be here, that this place will help me discover the truth, not only about my visions, but about my disease. Ezra is the key, but I'm struggling to reconcile that grief-stricken man in my head with the hardened rebel who wants to keep me locked up. Then again, he was holding a gun in my vision. Maybe I've been wrong about everything, and my future ends with him using it on me. An icy prickle trails across my naked flesh as my fingers grip the valve again, the pipe squealing in protest when I shut off the water. As I step out of the shower, my eyes land on the clothes Jenner mentioned. They sit neatly folded in a pile on the side of a wide metal basin, one of many positioned under a long row of mirrors. A toothbrush, a tube of toothpaste, and a towel lie just beside them on the edge of the sink, and boots and fresh socks sit nearby on the floor. I leave the filthy garments from the DSD where I tossed them before, abandoned in a mound on the floor, happily trading them for the fresh clothes. A pair of tight-fitting brown cargo pants, and a faded black long-sleeved shirt. I know I should pick up the physical reminders of my torment and discard them before someone else has to do it, but I can't bring myself to look at them, let alone touch them again. They hold too many bad memories. Memories I never want to revisit. My fingers comb through my tangled hair as my eyes lock on my reflection in one of the mirrors. I recoil when I meet the gaze of the gaunt-faced girl in the glass, unprepared for what I see. My skin is pale, almost sallow, and prominent bags hang under my eyes, darkening the skin like bruises. I've deteriorated since I last looked at myself. Now I look to be mere moments from death. I push that thought away and hurry out of the washroom, running from the reality of my disease with the same determination with which I ran from the DSD. In the corridor outside, Jenner leans against the wall opposite the doorway, humming a soft, unfamiliar tune. With his eyes closed, he looks serene, beautiful even, at peace. More than anything, I wish I could know what that feels like. His eyes pop open at my approach, and he flashes that charming, lopsided grin. Look at you all cleaned up. I mean, hey, you were cute before, but now... A blush spreads from my neck to the tips of my ears. I suppose I should take it as a compliment he finds anything physically appealing about me, considering the horrifying effects this disease is having on my appearance. In reality, I suspect his reaction might have more to do with the obvious lack of age-appropriate females residing here. Other than Ray, I don't think I've seen any other females around our age in this place. Sensing my embarrassment, he changes the subject. Shall we continue? Over the next hour, Jenner leads me through the rest of the compound. There isn't much left to see that I haven't already, but then again, I don't know what more I was expecting. This facility seems to serve as a residence rather than as a base of operations, and the majority of the rooms are either general living areas or individual sleeping quarters. When we reach the end of the tour, Jenner guides me back into that warehouse-like room with the domed ceiling where we had our first conversation earlier this week. A crowd has gathered, but we loiter at the outskirts of the space, watching in silence as the 24 people before us take turns patting a middle-aged man on the back. They repeat the same phrase to him over and over, some shouting the words while others sing them. Ray pushes her way into the center of the crowd, carrying a heavy-looking crate of glass bottles. When she sets it on the floor, everyone cheers before reaching for the bottles, which I assume must contain alcohol, considering Phoenix's affiliation with the Vega, like a pack of starving wolves. Amazing, I whisper, awe leaching into my tone. With everything you have going against you, you still find time to celebrate birthdays. Birthdays are just markers of time with a singular purpose, to denote how many years we have left until we become contributing members of society. In the state, the only birthday that matters is our 18th, which is when we go for our placement exam. At least that's how it normally is, and how it was in the years after Father died. Before then, he always made that day special, and would even give me little gifts when Mother wasn't looking. Always disposable so no one would ever find out about them, like a poem or a piece of music. Nothing tangible. Even though the gift was fleeting, it meant the world to me as a child. My birthday is when I feel his absence the most. Well, it's the little things that make life worth living, Jenner murmurs, his voice so low I can barely hear it. Besides, we have to enjoy this while we can, since we could all be dead tomorrow. The birthdays we have now, they could be our last. Jenner and I don't speak again as we watch the celebration unfold. My gaze moves from one end of the room to the other, observing this brief moment of bliss in the many smiling faces around me. My attention catches on one particular face in the crowd, and on the hazel eyes cutting into me, hard and cold. The second I process Ezra's expression, meeting his gaze, the world around me shifts, and pain explodes inside my head as a spiraling succession of images beats through my brain, each one another stab. Screams rip from my lungs as the vision overtakes me, dragging the room into total darkness. As I fall to my knees, a new vision takes shape behind my eyelids, bringing me back to the shadowed alley at the border of Zone 7, where I cut out my chip. Before me, an entourage of enforcers forms a barrier around a group of people, all dressed in identical knee-length white coats. I recognize those coats at the same moment Dr. Richter steps into my limited range of vision. He turns toward me with his lips pressed together, glaring down at his hand, where a bloodied glint of gold rests in the center of his palm. The corners of his mouth pull into a sneer as his fingers clench into a fist around the chip. "Clever girl," he purrs. My body convulses against the concrete floor, my head repeatedly slamming into the hard surface as the vision melts away. I can't regain control of my movements or quell the tremors running over my limbs, and within seconds, the metallic stench of blood fills my nose. Through the hazy black spots spreading in front of my eyes, I glimpse the vague outlines of figures huddling over me. "Wynter!" Ray calls out. My name is a panicked cry on her lips. I try to answer her, but I can't get my mouth to cooperate. The echo of Jenner's voice reaches my ears. "What the hell is happening to her?" He's shouting, and there's a slight wobble behind every word. He's scared, I realize. But whether he's scared of me or for me, I don't know. The pain spreads, threatening to swallow my body whole. Jenner and Ray lean over me, and through the haze obscuring my vision, I can just make out the concern and fear twisting their faces. But they aren't what I'm focusing on. They aren't what I'm searching for, what I need to see. In this moment before my long overdue death descends, finally ready to claim me, Ezra stares at me from between the blurred faces, his expression no longer cold and hard, not at all like it was the last time I met his gaze. Now, as the darkness pulls me under, those sad hazel eyes say only one thing. He's afraid.